Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Before we get too far into the video, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button before we get any further, that really helps to get my channel promoted, and I do appreciate that. I also love it when people leave comments, so if you have a question or a perspective on something, or some constructive criticism, or an idea for a video, or whatever, those things are great to leave in the comments. I do appreciate things like that as well. So, I get asked periodically about a couple of things having to do with hands. And so I'm going to talk about some strategies to deal with if you have shaky hands or you have an essential tremor or something like that. I've had a lot of people over the years take my classes who've had that issue, and sometimes there's a few strategies we can try to make that a little bit easier to do jewelry making. The other issue is not having terribly strong hands, and I've run into a lot of people over the years whose hand strength just couldn't do some of the things that I was doing with my hands, and I deal with losing strength in my hands year by year, and it's starting to get harder to bend things as well. So I'm going to talk about some strategies to get around those issues, and also some strategies to take care of yourself when you're doing this in general. I have some issues with my neck and my hands, and so I'll talk about how I deal with those things as well at the end. Keep in mind, I am not a doctor. I don't have any medical training as far as this stuff is concerned, so you should ask your doctor if these are good strategies for you. But since people have asked about it, I thought I'd talk a little bit about it. Before we get any further, though, I need to thank my patrons over on Patreon. They're a great group of people. I love the community they've made, and I really appreciate their financial support. They're just so nice, and I learn so much from them, and I really do appreciate that kind of stuff. So, my other group is my YouTube subscribers, and I believe we just passed 17,500 subscribers. That's amazing. I can't believe that. Thank you so much for subscribing if you have, and if you haven't, I'd love to have you subscribe. I do appreciate the nice comments as well. It's gratifying to find out that people are getting some value from these. It makes it easier to continue when I'm tired or just don't feel up to it. So thanks for that. I do appreciate the input. And I also appreciate the financial contributions, like the Buy Me a Coffees and the Super Thanks. That stuff really helps a lot. So thank you for that. All right, well, let's get started on the video. This is one of my design idea books you can get on my merch store if you're interested. I like this one because it's got a conversion chart on the back. I put fractions of an inch to decimals to millimeters, and I find that really useful since I use the metric system most often anymore. There's some other designs as well that have different charts on the back, like there's an American wire gauge to millimeters one. Those are super handy, I think. But I use these to draw up my projects every time I make a new project. That way I have a nice record of it and I can reproduce it if I want to. Today we're not doing any drawings, we're just going to talk about some things about hands. So the biggest thing I hear from people as far as their hands go are people who have tremors in their hands or who have shaky hands in general, and trying to do precise work with those situations. And that can be really challenging. And like I said, I'm not an expert, but I have had some people in my classes who've had some challenges like that, and we've come up with a few ideas that might work. I've also read up on it a bit to see if I could find any strategies, and there's not really that much out there that I've found, but I'll tell you what I would suggest. So first I want to talk about creating a fulcrum with your arm. And if you remember from your physics class, it's the point in the center of a seesaw, basically, where you balance the board on. And so if you translate that into how your hand is going to be working, okay, and when I say fulcrum, what I mean is you're going to use your other hand by placing it on the table and then set your primary tool hand here. And this in particular I found handy for people when they're placing little bits of solder and they need to place them precise spots. It helps with that, because if you're trying to do this and put a piece up here, your whole arm is up in the air and it's hard to keep things steady. You can see my hand moving around just like that. If I put my other hand here and use it as a fulcrum, like I said, then I can just tip forward like that and drop things in place. So pick up the same way, drop. And I think that'll reduce a little bit of the problem with tremors. At least your arm won't be up in the air like this where it's easier to have your hand shake. So I find that this fulcrum method works pretty well for placing precise stuff. This would be a good example where I did this flat originally, and it had all sorts of little solder joints in there, and so you had to place little tiny pieces of solder. And if I'm not pick soldering and I'm actually laying pieces of solder on there, it's much easier if you use that method where you have a little fulcrum point on your hand and just go plop, plop, plop. It helps if you make that sound effect as well too. Plop. Just kidding. Another thing you can do is if you have some sort of, hopefully a fireproof cushion, like this, if you rest your arm on it, that also will work pretty well. Although I still think it's easier if you use your other hand as a fulcrum. So, but that may help a little bit, and just generally help you to have your arm not fatigue very quickly as well. So, third strategy has to do with, and I have not tested this one. I've read about this one, and so I'm not sure if it really works. And again, ask your doctor if this is something you should do. But this is an ankle weight or an arm weight. I have heard, and I do not know if this is true. Perhaps you can tell me in the comments if you've tried this. Adding a weighted bracelet to your arm will help you to not have your hand tremble as much. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I think it's worth trying. If you have some of these are made for working out actually, but this weighs about a pound, I think. And so your arm will get tired faster, but if you're placing real precise things like that, you could put it on and maybe see if that works or not. I'd be interested to hear if you've tried that. Make sure to leave me a comment and tell me if that's an accurate way. It strikes me, it kind of makes sense because it feels like if you have a tremor that your tremor is not going to be able to move your hand as much if you have some weight attached to it. So it'll be interesting to find that out if you could tell me how that's worked for you in the past. So that's about all I have for tremors. The other thing I run into is people seeing me bending stuff in front of the camera like this, and like, I can't do that. My hands just aren't strong enough, Chad. So I'll show you some strategies that I have used in the past when I have really things that are hard to bend, and things that I recommend to people. So one of the things you can do if you have trouble bending things by hand like that is secure one end of it in something. And a good example of a tool that is good to do that in is one of these little, I don't know what they call them exactly, they're kind of a ring vise. You can stick a ring in here like this. Normally when I'm setting stuff, I just hold it in my hand and do that thing, but as I get older, it gets harder and harder to do that. And I wish I had discovered this a lot sooner. I really didn't realize these existed for a while. But if you jam this peg in the back, it holds it in there pretty tightly. Then it's much easier to hold on to a big thing like this than it is a little tiny piece like that. And so I can get more force bearing down on it, especially when I'm setting stones or whatever, by pushing down like that, you know. So securing your piece makes it easier to apply pressure. You know, you don't have your other hand, you know, giving in when you do that. So I think that's a useful thing. There's a lot of different kinds of vices to hold rings. There's other things just to hold jewelry. I'll show you this little cheap one that I use periodically. So this was just a cheap Amazon purchase. It's not a very good one of these, but it works pretty well if I need to have some leverage. It's got these pins. You can put them wherever you want in there, and you can use it as a bending jig. And I'll talk a little bit about leverage in a minute, but securing a piece in here makes it easier to apply some force, especially if you need to bear down with your weight on it or something. So that's nice to have something hooked in there. I actually have this old kind of, I think it's an antique probably. It's, let's see if you can kind of see this whole thing now. It looks like that, and it's got these jaws on the top. I picked this up in someone's tools that I bought years ago, and it works pretty well. It's got this hard, antique rubber here, which holds things pretty well, and it's got this little hand crank that you just crank like that. So I pull that out once in a while when I need to hold something. It's also got this ball joint here that allows you to position it in different directions, so that's kind of handy. I have no idea where you would get one of these, but there's lots of vices on the market for jewelry, so I think having one of those around is probably a good idea if you have some hand strength issues, and just in general sometimes it's handy. So this is kind of silly and ridiculous, but I honestly use C-clamps quite a bit in metalsmithing because it allows me to clamp a piece of wire in here pretty securely. And I have a video about how to do this, but you can use another one and secure the wire there and isolate a twist if you want to twist the wire. Some really thick wire is super hard to twist, and so having something big like this to grab onto gives you a lot more leverage that way too. So that's something you can do. Having different kinds of clamps around, these are handy. This is actually a wood clamp, I believe, but I occasionally clamp things in there. So just have a variety of tools around your house that may be usable for stuff like this already. So another thing you can think about when you're going to bend something that's thick and hard to bend is leverage plays a big role in being able to bend things. And an example would be to try and bend something this small like this is super hard because you don't have a lot to hold on to, and all the force has to be applied really close to where the bend takes place. So conversely, if you have a piece of wire that's longer like this and you want to bend it sharply down there, if you have this, it makes it much easier because you can use leverage to bend it pretty sharply down there. So the piece of advice I would suggest to you, and I forget to do this sometimes when I just kind of get focused on what I'm doing, is it's easier sometimes to bend things at least close to the shape they need to be before you cut them off. So don't cut it short first and then bend it first and then cut it short, because it gives you the advantage of having a little bit of leverage, of something to hold on to. So that really comes into play when you start getting into thick stuff. This is number 2 triangle wire from Rio, but you can imagine trying to bend a little short piece of this. It's pretty hard, but if you have it over here, you can use leverage to bend it pretty easily. So it gives you a distinct advantage if you leave it attached before you start to try and bend something. The third and last thing about bending stuff that I'd suggest is get yourself a nice ring bender. I don't have one of those yet, but one of these days I'm going to break down and get one of Pepe Tools' nice ones. By the way, I'm an affiliate of Pepe Tools, so I can put a link in here if you're interested in finding out about that. I'll put one right there for you. They have some really nice tools, and I've heard great things about their ring benders. So from a number of my patrons, as well as some YouTubers who tell me they have one, and it really helps a lot when you're trying to bend really thick rings and stuff. So you might try looking into that, and that's about what I have to say for bending stuff. So you want to make sure to secure things before you start trying to bend them, if you can, using leverage. Bend it before you cut it, and finally get yourself a nice ring bender if you can. Final thing I wanted to talk about today is how to keep your neck and back and your hands healthy when you're doing this kind of stuff. I have cervical stenosis up in my neck. It's called foraminal stenosis, and that means the nerves coming out of my spine that go down my arms, I should say, are getting pinched a little bit most of the time, and so it causes some weakness problems in my hands, some numbness, and some shakiness. And I wanted to talk a little bit about your posture when you're doing this. You see me, I have the worst posture sometimes when I'm doing videos, but what you should do, and I try to remember to do these things because it does help, I think, is sometimes I'm doing a project that's like 6 hours long, And if I don't get up about every hour and stretch and do, you know, like bend over and stretch down and touch my toes, bend my neck back and do some stretching, I will pay the price later on with a bad headache, you know, triggered by my neck problems. So, and it also affects my hands. The more I hunch forward and for longer periods of time, the more likely I'm going to start having some problems with my hands, you know, while I'm doing this. So, getting up and stretching once in a while is good. Another thing you can do to help with that, and I kind of can't do it with my setup for filming videos. It just doesn't work in this space. So I think it would be probably better for me if the height of my work table was a little bit higher. I think if the height of my work table was a little bit higher, I wouldn't hunch over so much. I'd be able to do things right in front of me. So that's something you can adjust in your own shop probably. The other ones are just some basic maintenance tips for your hands. Let me show you some stuff. Oh, one other thing, I keep a little footrest down here, which helps me to have better posture. If I periodically take my feet off the floor and put them on, this is all covered with animal hair and stuff. But it changes the position of my back and causes me to move around a little bit, which seems to help sometimes. But as far as the things that I do to take care of my hands after the fact, my favorite thing that I just got are these, and they're actually rice bags. You throw them in the microwave for a minute, and then you put them on your hands and just let them sit, and it's marvelous. They feel so good. So that really helps with me when I have my hands hurt. Oh, by the way, you can heat those up and put them on the back of your neck too, and that feels great. Rice bags are marvelous. I don't know where we got this thing, but it's actually, you stick your hand in it, and it inflates in various parts, and it kind of massages your hand. It puts pressure on different parts of it. It's really kind of nice, and it does feel good afterwards. So I'll have to ask my wife where she got this for me, because it's kind of a nice tool. But and finally, and this is for Flying Chef, who comments on my channel a lot, make sure to take care of your skin. I have skin problems as well. I get outbreaks of what's it called, eczema. And sometimes my skin gets really fragile and bleeds and stuff. And if you put some lotion on it every day, or some bag balm like this, which she sent me, that really does help a lot. I've had more and more skin problems as I've gotten older, probably because of all the chemicals and stuff you use doing this, and just generally neglecting my hands. This kind of stuff really does help if you put it on pretty frequently. So you just watched me do it, Flying Chef, and I do appreciate the bag balm. So I know I need to do it more, and I apologize, but I will try to be better about it. So those are some different things you can do to take care of your hands and your neck a little bit. So all right, well, I hope you found this useful. Oh, I wanted to thank all the people who bought my new ebook. Note that there is 2 different versions. There's the EPUB one, which works great on books on Apple products. Some people have told me they have some problems with it on other platforms. If you bought it and you're having problems, just contact me through my website and I'll send you a PDF version. There is also a PDF version available in the store, so just look for that and make sure you get that kind if you want to have maximum compatibility, probably. So yeah, and like I said, if you had a problem with it, just send me a message through my website and I'll get you a new copy. So, all right. Oh, here's a link for those if you want to get yourself one. Okay, well, that was just a few things about dealing with some issues with your hands, and also taking care of yourself physically while you're doing this kind of stuff. I hope you found that useful. If you did, make sure to hit the like button. And I'd love it if you check out my main channel page. I have well over 400 videos now. I do 3 per week. And there's almost certainly something else you'll find interesting over there. I have tons of projects at all different levels and some strategies for making things. clasps, findings, tools, all sorts of videos over there. So check them out, subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to hit the video description down below. You can get one of those nice design idea books that I showed you at the beginning, or you can buy my new ebook, which is a guide to 2024's videos that I put out. It's a great way to have a whole bunch of projects right at your fingertips, and a great way to support my channel. There's also a link to my Patreon if you want to find out more about that community. It's a great place with a lot of really knowledgeable people, so check that out. Come back again. Take care. Happy silversmithing.